Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Shine. Do you need another?
You know, to enjoy metal detecting, you kind of have to be a person with a curious nature, because most of the things you find aren't really treasures or anything of any value, but just things that are just curious of exactly where they are and where they came from and so forth. For example, most of the time you find a little thing like this. It's a kind of a lock that went on something, twist steel, made out of iron, I guess. Where did that come from? I'll look it up on the internet. It's got a serial number on it. Maybe it came off of railroad tracks or something like that, but it definitely is a heavy-duty lock to lock up something. Then I was out the other day, picked up this odd thing. All right, there you go. The tip of it over here is brass. Yeah, brass here. Then you got some rusty iron. This part right here is made out of steel. You got 6 holes running through the middle of it. So there's something that turned within this cylinder here that did something. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to figure it out just out of curiosity. But I bet you if I was a good tractor mechanic, I bet you I could tell you what it was. But right now, I don't know. But to get to the topic of the video here today, I had bought this AT Pro, and I was interested in testing it out just to see how it worked and see if I could interpret these sounds and signals that it gave. So I went out to a little strip of woods like this right here, and I was finding a few beer cans and so forth, and happened to hit about 5 inches down this thing that I have in my hand here. Now, I didn't know what it was, to be honest with you, but I went back and looked it up. I knew it was something good, but I didn't know exactly what it was. But when I found it, I got all happy about it. I was sitting over here dancing around the woods doing the Texas two-step, kind of enjoying myself. I was over here hugging the tree. Then all of a sudden I kind of came to my senses. I says, you know, why am I hugging the tree? I said, the tree didn't give me the thing. It wasn't something that the tree had anything to do with it, but I was sitting here hugging the oak tree. Kind of reminded me of those Druids over in Germany. They used to worship oak trees, thinks that all their gifts came from oak trees. They had one oak called Thor's oak that was one of their gods from that region, Norwegian mythology, I think we call it. And St. Boniface went over there and took an axe to the tree. First of all, he didn't get struck down by lightning, which was good. And the second of all, he found the tree was rotten in the middle. Well, when they saw that, the Druids started converting to Christianity. Well, fine and dandy for them. So maybe I'm not a Druid, but so I shouldn't be hugging on or giving appreciation to this oak tree. I don't know if that story is true. It may not be true, but I don't really care if it's true or not, because what's important to me is the principle behind that story of the oak tree. You see, you can find a lot of things that look real good on the outside, but if you take a look deeper, you find it's ugly or rotten on the inside. You can take a good-looking man or a good-looking woman. You can take a political movement. You can take a minister, or you can take about anything. And that looks good, but it may not be good. And you have to kind of investigate everything that you contribute part of your life to make sure you're not getting into something that's just absolutely rotten. So anyway, I kind of dismissed the fact that it came from the oak tree. But I was still curious because statistically, I shouldn't have found this thing. I mean, for me to walk out in the woods with no experience in a little place with no history to it really that you can find, and find what happens to be a cartridge box buckle from the Civil War. This thing had been laying in the ground for some 155 years or something like that, and then I found it. But I shouldn't have found it. But I did find it. Is it just good luck? Maybe, I guess, if you believe in luck. Maybe I figured out that the thing was laying in the ground and got lonely. It said it wanted to be found. So when I came out there, it started calling me over there. I said, come on over here, check me out. So I went over there and checked it out, and by golly, I dug it up. And I took a look at it, and I said, you know what, the more I looked at it, the more I liked it. The more precious it got to me. The more I started coveting that belt buckle. It got so bad at night, everybody would go to sleep, and about 3 o'clock, I'd turn off all the lights would be off, and I'd turn on my little lamp, and I'd look at it. And I'd admire its beauty. I'd pet it, and I'd kiss it, you know, stuff like that. But I finally figured out that I was doing wrong there, because I don't think you should covet something that was freely given to you. I mean, if you're going to find something, if you get a gift like this right here, you have to find something to do with your gifts. Because I believe everyone has gifts or gets gifts as they go through life, or has gifts that they're born with. I remember asking a young lady one time what her gifts was, and she said she didn't have any gifts. Well, I've always impressed me there, and I've always been kind of aggravated at the fact that individuals can go through life not recognizing that they have gifts. So anyway, I try to recognize mine anyway, and this right here this belt buckle is one of my gifts, I think. So we got the belt buckle now. What to do with it? It's a gift. You can't covet it. You can't. It's not given to you by a tree. Science doesn't explain the situation, but you have to come up with a story about this darn belt buckle, which is a little bit of a problem. You can, being that everything has a story behind it, and no one knows the story, you can kind of make up your story. Then, if enough people believe you, it kind of becomes like the real story. All right. So we'll make up a story about my belt buckle. My box buckle. We got this boy named Jimmy O'Kelly sitting over in Ireland. He's in Shannon, Ireland, and he has to get out of Ireland. And he gets on the tramp steamer coming across the ocean, and he arrives in New York City. Now, he was met down there in New York City on the docks by a Union officer who signed him up in the Union Army. Gave him $300 bonus, gave him I think about $12 a month, and said, here you go, Jimmy, here's your coat, your hat, your rifle, your boots, and a cartridge box with a buckle on it, and here we go, you're in the Army now. Well, Jimmy, he doesn't give a diddly squat about what's going on with the Army. He doesn't have an issue with the North and the South and slavery and all these other issues. He's lucky he wasn't an indentured servant to begin with. But anyway, he takes off, he gets assigned to a troop, and he takes a train ride down to Washington, D.C., and he starts maneuvering around D.C. Well, on this maneuver, he gets his cartridge box hung on a briar bush, and it rips off the belt buckle. And he doesn't know it. He just keeps on walking. About that afternoon, the sergeant says, Jimmy, where's your box buckle at? And he said, I don't know, Sergeant. He said, well, I'm going to dock you a week's pay. So Jimmy got docked a week's pay. They got together, and they heard news that old Robert E. Lee, he needs some supplies for his Maryland campaign, so he starts off, he's going to raid Harper's Ferry. So they go up to meet Harper's Ferry. So Jimmy and his crowd walks up to Frederick, Maryland, takes a left-hand turn, and goes and meets them at Stone Mountain. Now, Stone Mountain wasn't a real big battle, but it was a battle. But mainly all the Confederates was doing it, using it as a delaying technique, so that old Robert E. Lee could get all the materials out of Harper's Ferry, which he did. Robert E. Lee then goes back and organizes troops at Antietam, and all the Union military comes over, and they just have a big party there at Antietam. And it so happens that in Longstreet's cavalry, my great cousin was in the cavalry, and in that battle of Antietam, he shot Jimmy O'Kelly. He killed him, dead. Jimmy, they're laying there. They didn't go back with all those men on the field. I think about 60,000 people, Americans got killed that day. So they just buried him in an unmarked grave. And the only thing now that's left of Jimmy O'Kelly is my box buckle. So in honor of Jimmy, I'm going to keep this thing. I'm going to enjoy it, and one of these days I'm going to pass on this little gift to someone who deserves it. Because I'm not going to pass it on to someone who don't deserve it. I don't believe in emptying water into an empty well. And I don't believe in throwing your gifts in the middle of a pig pen. You know, your pearls with the swine and all that stuff. So I'm going to keep the belt buckle and find out one day someone would like to have it, and I'm going to give it to them.